Well, hello YouTube, Steve Pat with General Pat Bushcraft, back with you friends. I'm back out in the backyard. Super excited friends to bring you the show notes of episode 3, season 12. They're in the Great Karoo Desert in South Africa. Episode 3's title is Thirst Trap. Stay tuned for the show notes. Okay friends, I got the show notes for season 12 episode 3 titled Thirst Trap. This show was only 50 minutes long. It was fairly short, but every Alone show starts with a famous quote from a famous individual, and today's quote for Thirst Trap is, "We never know the worth of water till the well is dry." And that's by Thomas Fuller. Okay friends, the show starts on day 3, 3:41 in the morning, and it starts off with Will. Will's the 34-year-old from Texas, USA, and it's the middle of the morning, early morning, 3:30 in the morning, 3:41 in the morning, friends, and he's getting ready to go fishing. And participants, we learn, are equipped with UV lights here in the Great Karoo Desert, and that's to find such critters as scorpions. Will has a scorpion pinned under a rock. He turns his headlight off and he turns on that UV light, and we get to see that scorpion. It's about this big, friends, and they're able to capture a certain type of light, harness some light in their body, and it glows in the dark with a UV light. Pretty special. All right, Will takes the tail and the pinchers off of this scorpion and uses it for bait. And the show moves on to 6:59 in the morning now, and he's still fishing. He tries a new spot, bam! He catches a sharp-toothed catfish, friends, with that scorpion. Now these fish are omnivores with pointed bands of teeth, and we see him at 7:29 a.m. cleans the catfish, and Will tells us he hates fish. His strategy is just to try to power through eating the fish. His strategy is to eat a lot of fish, and he's just going to power through it and hopes that hunger will make him so hungry that he could just start liking fish. He cooks up that fish on the fire, friend, and he actually likes it. And we learned this is the first catfish that Will has ever eaten. All right, still day 3. It's 3:48 p.m. and the show moves on to Kelsey. She's the 35-year-old from Montana, USA, and she sees more warthogs, friends. She's the one that's already shot and killed, and she's been eating the warthog for days now, and she says she needs more water. She tells us, everybody watching, we all need more water, and that's true, friends. She says if you guys haven't drank a gallon of water, you haven't drank enough water yet. So all you people out there watching General Pat and Bushcraft, you need to drink some water. All right, she wants to build a water cache, so she starts stacking some rocks. She finds a frog underneath a rock, and she says, I'm gonna let this little critter go. I'm not that desperate to start eating frogs yet. And we see her make a nice water cache out of some rocks and her canvas tarp, and she's been drinking 1 pot of water a day. That's about 2 quarts, and it's pretty time consuming, friends, to filter, boil water. It takes about 30 minutes for every pot. So her strategy is to store some water up in that water cache. Very smart on her part. And we see her pour 4 quarts of water into the water cache. And we see her sitting by the pond in her area, eating some more warthog. All right, friends, it's day 4 now, 9:17 in the morning, and the show goes over to Douglas, 57-year-old from North Carolina, USA. His shelter's coming along under a big, low-hanging tree. And his strategy is this, to wall off one side with a bunch of sticks. And I'm assuming he's going to eventually use this tarp. We'll see how he finishes off his shelter. But he tells us he's spending too much time preparing water, filtering, boiling, letting it cool, drinking water, friends. Very time consuming. And we learned that he's worked for a water treatment plant for 24 years. So he's fully aware of bacteria and such critters growing in the water. He knows how crucial it is. We also learned that Douglas, Nathan, and Doug all brought canteens as one of their 10 items. It might be a smart move in the Great Karoo South African desert, friends. Anyway, he goes on walkabout, finds a big old agave root ball. Massive container, friends. This thing, he hollows it out. He burns the long trunk off of the ball in the fire. And this thing looks like it might even hold 1.5 to 2 gallons of water. Definitely over a gallon. Very smart on Douglas. All right, friends, still day 4, 11:03 a.m. The show goes back over to Will, the 34-year-old from Texas, USA, and we see him throwing a rock at a bird on a tree, and he misses, was a little too far away, so he heads back up the steep mountain in his area to go hunting. He wants to get some meat, and participants are burning about 120 calories per mile on these steep hills, friends. He sees a water buck, a bull, a cow, and a little one. And these things have glands that emit a musky odor. Will can definitely smell them, but he can't get close enough. The hike is very rocky, friends. Gets up on top and he sees a gemsbok. That's a South African onyx with straight pointy horns, friends. He spooks it, and he says it's going to be very hard to hunt these big herd animals. 12:57, back at camp. Will is very tired. All right, friends, it's day 4 still, 1:57 p.m., and the show goes over to Kelsey. She finds 2 deadheads, 2 nice onyx skulls with some long, straight, pointy horns, and she's working on her shelter. She finds some blue bush trees, and that's a hardwood in the area, and she cuts 2 nice long poles, and she's going to use them as the main beams. She sticks them in the side of this small river bank. It's more like a creek, dry creek bed. She pushes those 2 beams in the bank, and she supports the outstretched limbs on some tripods, and she drapes her tarp over the 2 beams. She's got a nice decent shelter in that creek bed. She says she chose that creek bed because it's real sandy, it's clean, there's no rocks, no nothing in it, because it's been washed out before, friends. So we'll see if she doesn't get a monsoon and gets flooded out. So far so good. Shelter looks pretty decent. She finds some reeds and starts collecting a bunch of reeds to make a nice mattress. And she shows us some very colorful green and orange birds that are making some small caves in the side of the clay cliff wall. Really cool looking birds, colorful, green and orange. Okay, friends, it's day 5 now, 7:57 in the morning, and the show goes over to Pablo. He's the 55-year-old from Florida, USA. He's making a lure out of some colorful paracord. Tries some fishing. He's got his long waterproof boots on. He wades out, about mid-calf depth in the lake. Tries some fishing. Nothing, friends. The sun's beating on him, and beating him down. It's only 77 degrees. Friends, I'm here in Arizona. I'm used to this 110, 115, and I'm used to the hot sun. But friends, you got to block the sun. You got to keep the sun off of you. He's out there with no hat, letting the sun beat right on his head. Not a good strategy for Pablo. Back to camp. No fish, more water, filter, boil, let cool, and drink. Like I said, it's about 11:26 in the morning. It's 81 degrees, and he wants to work on a shelter. He grabs that short handle shovel, and he thinks he's gonna build a dome type shelter, and he's gonna dig some holes and put these bendable poles in these holes and arch them over and build a dome shelter. But friends, the sun kicks his butt. He can't handle it, friends. And he's back into the shade, feeling sick, feeling very sick. He starts talking to himself, friends. He's having second thoughts. He says he's feeling lightheaded. And my goodness, friends, 3:37 p.m. He says he's wishing he brought a water bottle. We see him, he puts a flat rock out by the water's edge. He goes out there and sits on the flat rock. And he's complaining about the heat, friends. It's not even that hot yet. And oh my goodness, friends, there he goes. Pablo taps out on day 5. All right, friends, day 5, 3:27 p.m. 7 people remain. 2 ladies still there. And the show goes over to Will. Will's cooking up some prickly pear. And we see him with a piece of that cactus. He burns off the thorns in the fire, and then he cuts it up, puts it in his cook pot with some acacia beans, and he's gonna make some prickly pear acacia bean stew. And he says he's been eating a lot of acacia beans, and he says he's eaten about maybe 2 pounds so far, friends, in 5 days. That's about 2,550 calories and about 180 grams of protein. 4:22 p.m. friends, he's got some desert survival food, cactus and acacia beans. He chokes it down. He finishes all of it. And oh my goodness, friends, the show moves about 10:33 that night, and we see Will waking up, throwing up. He's vomiting, and he says he vomits up a lot of blood. Uh-oh. The show shows us, this is the first time I've seen this, friends, in all 12 seasons of Alone. I see a red button alert. Will pushes the red button on that sat phone, and the red button, that means immediate response. So the response team shows up and carries Will out back to base camp on a stretcher, friends. And we learned that the diagnosis for Will is acute colitis. They give him 4 liters of fluid, antibiotics, and some steroids, friends. And oh my goodness, the show ends right there, friends. We're down to 6 people in 5 days. 4 people tap out. 6 people remain, friends. All right, friends, we haven't seen a whole lot of the one lady. We've seen a lot of Kelsey so far, but both the women look to be doing pretty good. 4 of the men have tapped out. Jeet's out, Colton's out, Pablo's out, Will is out. And I tell you what, Nathan's looking pretty strong, and so are the 2 women. So is Doug and Douglas, matter of fact. That wraps up my show notes, friends. I want to thank you for stopping by the channel. Before you leave, please consider subscribing. Give the video a like. It helps me out a lot, friends. It helps me to keep bringing you these videos. So give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know who you think's gonna win this thing, It might not go too long. It's definitely not going to go along as the ones that we see in Canada. This one's tough, friends. The water's tough, and a lot of people are getting sick. But I appreciate everything you do for the channel, all your views, all your likes, all your shares. Most importantly, I like all your comments. Leave me a comment. All right, please don't depart from the faith. And if you haven't already, give your life to Christ. Do it today. Don't wait. And as always, God is good. God is great. I see y'all on the next video. Already got a date.